Very excited to have everyone here. My name is Jake Ellswick. I am the Director of Customer Experience here at Servio Consulting. We know many of you, we have many friends on the call here, but for those that aren't familiar, Servio, we are a Salesforce consulting firm. We focus specifically on Salesforce and specifically on the education sector. We're very excited to have everyone here today. Before we get going, though, we have to start with our next slide here and kind of talk about what we're going to hear and what we're going to see. So we've got some wonderful speakers here from Salesforce, and as we're talking about some of the products and some of the opportunities that exist around data, we do want to remind everyone to make any purchasing decisions moving forward around what is currently available. If there are things that jump out at you today, we'll certainly be reaching out and following up and ensuring that you're connected to the right folks for those conversations. But always want to make sure we cover this base. And next, I just want to say thank you. We know this is a busy time for everyone in education. This is getting towards the end of the school year. You've got finals coming up. You've got students moving off campus. You've got graduation. And for many of us, we've got kids at home too that are wrapping up their school year. So really just want to say thank you for the time, and we appreciate everyone carving some time out of their schedules here. Um, Before we jump in to kind of the meat of today's presentation, I just want to take a moment to level set on why we're spending time on this topic, because honestly, this is coming up in just about every conversation we're having right now. Scattered data, do we need it? Should we integrate it? Or do we just need to be able to view it and report on it? These are the kinds of questions that institutions across the country are facing. You're all here because you're probably thinking about those as well. And at the end of the day, data really is king. But more specifically, it's not just about having data, it's about having clean data, it's about having connected data and having trusted data across your systems. What we're seeing right now across institutions is that you can have great tools, but if the data underneath it isn't aligned, you start to feel it pretty quickly. Your reporting doesn't match, teams don't trust what they're seeing, and it becomes really hard to deliver that connected experience across the student life cycle that is so valuable. The other reality is you know your data better than anyone. You know where it's strong, you know where it's messy, where workarounds exist, and where things break down. And that's why this conversation matters so much right now, because things are changing fast. With everything happening across AI, automation, and more connected platforms, the expectations around your data are only increasing. The institutions that are they're going to be successful are ones that can pivot quickly, and that starts with having the right data foundation in place. And that's really what today is all about. How to think about trusted context, how to approach data in a more intentional way, and where tools like MuleSoft, Informatica, and Data 360 actually fit into that picture. So with that, I'm very excited to bring in a couple folks here who spend a lot of time in this space. We've got David X here today, who brings really practical perspective on how to connect systems at scale. And we've also got Anthony Cubes, who's focused specifically on helping institutions build out strong, scalable data foundations and really think through what trusted data really looks like in practice. So with that, Anthony, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jake. And thank you, everyone, for being here today. I'm going to go off camera in a minute. We're having some intermittent issues at the tower, but you can see I have a beautiful view here of the Chicago River at the Chicago Tower. And if you haven't been, would love to host you here personally in the future. I lead our data foundations team. Last year, it was MuleSoft, but we're going to talk a little bit today about why we've expanded that mission and why we think it's important. We're going to focus less on talking about kind of the features and functionality of each of the tools and really about what we're hearing in the market, and then what is our answer to that, and what is the go forward strategy there. So really appreciate your time. We will have questions and answers at the end. However, please feel free to use the chat and add those in real time. I'll let David introduce himself about halfway through. He's going to jump in and go in a little bit more into detail. Just one second. Okay. Okay, so the agenda today, again, really want to focus on why is trusted context critical to both the student and institutional success. We want to show a little bit about our data foundations approach and how that's reshaping campus architecture. And then when and where to look at tools like Informatica, MuleSoft, Data 360, and how do you fit those into your strategy? Okay, but to create that foundation is a challenge, and you're all living this now. But just you open up the news and you see the articles that are sent. 90% of the big data we generate is an unstructured mess. Garbage in and garbage out, right? The importance of data management. 95% of generative AI pilots are failing. Data difficulties across enterprise AI projects. 88% of AI projects fail, and it's not the technology, right? You're slowed by data integration. And this is a common theme, and this is what institutions and businesses are living with, right? And so how do we get to that next level? How do we become an agentic institution? How do we even get value out of the tools that we have currently? And so what we feel is, what if the secret to your fully connected campus wasn't a new app, but a new foundation? And that's really important. And the challenge with that is that that new foundation is needed because you have trapped data across your whole institution. And so we're entering this agentic enterprise era, and most institutions can't even fully use the data that you already have. You have valuable information. It's stuck in legacy databases, scattered across systems, locked inside platforms, right? SAP, Oracle, Banner, Workday. And so the issue isn't a lack of data. Institutions have a ton of data. It's that the data is fragmented and it's hard to access. But at the same time, the demand for data is growing, but it needs to support reporting. It needs to power AI, enable business users, transform those student experiences, and drive intelligent operations. And so to make that possible, the way Salesforce is looking at that is that we've created this data foundations group to really help institutions and organizations unlock the data, make sure you can trust the data, and then that you can actually put it to use and activate that data. So the question is really, where do you start? Because you can't build on a shaky foundation. I think we've all seen too many projects, too many great applications. Start there, and then halfway through the project, you start thinking, where does the data need to come from and how do we integrate it? Those are recipes for failure. It doesn't allow you to move as fast as you need to, and you can't pivot. And so because you're not short on that data, you're using some point solutions to manage that experience. You might be doing a point-to-point connection, but guess what? When you have to upgrade that tool, when you have to make a change, you have to go rebuild those connections, and that isn't moving fast enough, right? And so with those multiple siloed systems, you're struggling to do the job effectively, right? And that trapped data has valuable insights and valuable power, and that is ultimately creating trapped value. And when you look at schools, the challenge really becomes apparent. In your typical data stack, right? If you look from the bottom down, you have massive amounts of deep historical data across old databases, unstructured files, living everywhere. You have an app stack, right? Data heavy apps like Workday, Ellucian, Slate, etc. For many of you on the call, you have a large Salesforce stack, CRM, Education Cloud, Service, Tableau, Marketing Cloud. You have your hyperscalers, right? You're either living in AWS or Microsoft or GCP. You have your data lakes like Snowflake and Databricks. And then you even have external third-party sources like enriched apps, Canvas, Blackboard, Google Analytics. All of those can be their own little silo. How do we get them to talk to each other? Is building a point-to-point integration, work enough? What happens then is you multiply that, because that could be a typical data stack just within one department, one college, one division of a school, right? And you start looking and multiplying these data stacks. And then the question is like, where do we go from here? And so this is what we're going to focus on a little bit today. This is really what data foundations is. And there's really three things that we need to be doing with our data. The first is we need to unlock it. You need to connect all of your data. So whether that's ETL or ELT batch processing or real-time streaming integration, It also means connecting and leveraging data that's in your ecosystem. Think of Databricks and Snowflake with our zero copy architecture with Data 360. You need to integrate it, right? And so you need to make available system to systems through APIs, right? How can the advising software play back and be connected right into your SIS and have that connection in real time? And you need to be able to access those pieces in real time. But even when it is accessible, it often can lack shared meaning. I think, the meaning of each of these data are going to vary depending on the team and the systems, and people are going to interpret that data differently. So you need to understand what each of those data elements represent, where it originates, how it relates to the other data across the enterprise. And so those business definitions, the reusable models and clear policies are all critical to unlocking these data silos that you have. But after you unlock it, right, we want to make sure we trust it, because you can connect all the data in the world, but if it's not trusted, is it really driving value for your institution? Right. And so the next steps that we take is that you need to make sure the data is validated. Right? Can you defend it? Where did it originate from? Where was it transformed? Who's accessing it? So, this is the discovery, having a data catalog, the data lineage, and, having strong data quality. You need to protect it, right? Especially important in higher education with the sensitive data that you're all dealing with. So that governance, the consent management, access control, policy enforcement, all of these things have to be thought about, when we're unlocking these silos. Is it safe to use for analytics and automation and AI? Can your agents even act on it with confidence that they're not going to hallucinate or deliver the wrong information or your stakeholders? This protection layer, goes across a couple of our different products. So you can think about data 360 in the ecosystem, our trusted services. And then, really importantly was our acquisition of Informatica and its enterprise data governance. And then once you do that, you need to unify the data and pull it all together. Your data is everywhere right now, but it doesn't mean it's governed. And so if you allow agents and users to take the path of least resistance, which they'll usually do, they're going to select the first data point that works for them. But that doesn't mean it's accurate, right? Or the right data. And so by unifying it, you bring together the best of all the data that you have, and you connect it into a single consistent view for that golden record. And once you trust the data, now we know we can use it, right? But we have to make it, we have to go and use it, right? And so that's the activation layer for us. And, for us, first we decide, we use decision intelligence with Tableau, aligning KPIs, surfacing patterns. Data 360 then is creating those trusted profiles to drive segmentation and personalization across kind of every one of our Salesforce apps. Orchestration is becoming super critical right now, not only for workflows, but this new agentic world. You can think about the conversations you're having with us around Agentforce, with Banner and others around their agents, Oracle agents, Workday agents, and then you think about the shadow IT world that's growing, of all the different SaaS apps that you may have, some that IT doesn't even know about, and the agents that come with that and access your data. If you're not orchestrating all of that across your systems, you're setting a ton of risk up for your institution. And so MuleSoft actually plays on that agent orchestration. How can you govern and orchestrate those agents and make sure they're acting appropriately? And that act is the final step. Can we have the data be safe, and can we have it agents act reasonably? And if you have to unlock your data, trust your data, and activate it, you have to have the tools to do it. And ultimately, this is the foundation that we've created, right? And so our new data foundations group is of our Data 360, Tableau, Informatica, MuleSoft, because getting the data right is literally the foundation for success, not only for delivering on your apps, but for delivering in the future on your agents. And so you can look at it that integration really is the foundation for all of your strategic initiatives. If you look at all of those initiatives underway, whether it's hyper-personalized student journeys, AI pushes, agent pushes, SIS migration. There's one thing that's critical, and that is to be successful. Every single one of those initiatives needs integrated access to your systems, and it needs to be trusted data. So by unifying the applications and the data with the right foundation, then you can build those seamless experiences across your institution. You can speed up project delivery by enabling teams, and you can scale with confidence. So to us, integration isn't an afterthought that should come a few months into a project, right? It is really foundationally the building blocks to your strategic initiatives. And so David X, I'm going to let him introduce himself. He's going to go a little bit deeper into each of these. And ultimately, we'll have a call to action at the end. Hopefully, we'll have some questions, but we'd love to dive in deeper on each of these topics for you and where we can support. But David, I'll turn it to you to talk about why this trusted context really is the new currency that organizations need to think about and leverage. And so, I'm sorry, David, I thought we had your side in there. I'll leave it here for you to do a quick intro.
Yeah, no, thanks, Anthony, and great job. And thanks, Jake, and thank you everybody for joining us. I'm Dave X. I'm the field CTO for public sector for our data and integration team. And I'm coming to you from Northeast Ohio. A beautiful sunny day. It's wonderful to actually see spring and not snow this week. We'll see about next week. But I'm going to double click on what Anthony was saying. You know, the mantra that we have in this talk is the unlock, trust, and activate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go another level deeper to talk about this. And you know, and so hopefully by the time we're done today, you know, we can answer the question is like, how do you connect your enterprise data and systems to deliver trusted context? And what is trusted context? You know, it's like I could unlock all of my systems, but if I can't trust the data, that's going to lead to problems. And it's not just from you know, the thinking about the ramifications of what bad things can happen, but as we start thinking about the change management aspects of, say, like AI adoption and automation, if I have a bad AI experience or a bad agentic AI experience, you know, the saying, it's like you have one chance to make a first impression, right? If somebody has a bad first impression with their AI or their agentic experience because it's not providing the right data or it's not providing correct data, the likelihood of that application being adopted after all the investment that you've made is not going to happen. So how can we not only unlock that data, how do we trust it, and then how do we bring it to life? So I'm going to click on that. So let's go to the next slide, Anthony.
Yep.
Yeah, and so, you know, a lot of times too, it's like a lot of customers I talk to, it's like, as I've had a lot of these conversations with a lot of CIOs and CTOs in the education space, and you know, we talk about the data problem, but it's not just the data and unlocking the data, but how do I make meaning out of the data? How do I build context out of the data? I'm pulling fields out of databases from all over the place. How do I bring that unified view of what a student looks like, or you know, an athletic fan or a donor, right? And so, you know, to me, to build that context, you got to make sure that the data are connected to one another, right? I have all of the systems connected. The data is timely too. So making sure, you know, for me to be able to trust that data, it has to be timely. If think about like whether I'm buying tickets for a sports, you know, basketball game, or student is registering for classes. If you're looking at a seating chart from yesterday, that's probably not that good. It's not that helpful, right? Because you know, tickets have and you know, people have registered for classes. So having that timely data is important. In many cases too, having data that's a day old or a week old for statistical longitudinal studies is totally fine and may actually be preferable to look at, you know, to hit a data warehouse really hard, right? Or your data lake really hard to do your analytics, where you don't want to clobber your live production system doing heavy duty analytics. So having that best of both worlds and knowing where you're pulling your data from and the age of that data is really important. Governance is also super important, making sure not just the right people have access to the data, but the agents that you're building have the right access to the data. And this is a new trend that I'm seeing this year as people start to adopt agentic AI of like, if I have an agent, do I give it an identity? And what permissions do I give that agent? And it may have like general purpose rules of what it could do, but maybe based upon the person that is connecting with that agent, that agent gets the role-based access controls of the person that is invoking that agent. So like Anthony may have God mode in terms of being able to see the SIS system, where me as a student or a user may only have like a read-only view that's only tightly scoped for me, right? And so, but being able to delegate that access is super important too. We don't want agents to just, yeah, you have access to all the data and good luck with that and hope for the best. We can't have that, right? Especially when we think about PII, PHI, FERPA data, we got to be careful. Then understanding the data, that semantic understanding of, I get a number. Okay, I got the number. What does this number mean? And maybe we'll take a look at that on the next slide, Anthony, to give you an idea of what this looks like. So, for instance, in this case here, if we look at the left side, this is where a lot of people are starting off with, right? You have all of these data sources that are scattered all over the enterprise. MuleSoft does an annual connectivity benchmark report. We had one that came out in like January of this year, and typically it's about 1,000 applications per enterprise that people have, and only a small fraction of them are connected to one another. But you have this data that is from all over the place. It could be of different vintages. It could be of different times. It could be conflicting data, right? The email address may be their .edu address in one system. It may be their Gmail address in another system, right? And so how can I build this context around it where you could, some people have described this middle part, this middle thing as like the baseball card for a student, right? Or the baseball card for the professor, or where I'm pulling in all the data from all the different sources and I'm building this unified profile. Whether I'm using that with Data 360 or I'm doing master data management with Informatica, I'm pulling all the data together to bring this single context together. And then, but it's like, great, I have this baseball card of what a student looks like. Now I could figure out that things start to come into focus where, one system I realize that this is a student at risk, right? Their GPA is low. Another system may say, hey, they're missing classes. Another system says that they're, but if I take all these data points and I look at them individually, they may be a fun fact. But if I could pull all of that data together to have this holistic view of what a student looks like, it comes into focus and says, wow, this student is at risk of dropping out. They're disengaging from classes. I'm noticing all of these different patterns starting to come into focus. But even though I have unlocked the data, I've trusted the data, I've unified the data, I have this common picture, great. So what, right? What are the most important part of the slide is that right side of the slide, the outcomes. What are the business outcomes that I want to drive from this? And what I like to do is when I talk with customers is start on the right. What outcomes do we want to drive? And then work right to left in terms of what data we got to unlock. What does a unified profile of a student look like? And the outcomes are business outcomes, right? And I want to improve retention of my students. I want to make sure my program is effective, that the students that graduate get a high paying job, right? That also the advisors are productive, so that they are focusing on the students that need the help the most and they're intervening at the right time, and emphasizing that way instead of spreading their advisor time like peanut butter across all of the students. AI accuracy is always important, right, to prevent the hallucinations. And the other part is the hyper-personalization that we see a lot on the commercial side when we log into Amazon to go shopping. It's a very personalized experience. My view is very different from Anthony's view based upon our viewing habits on Amazon Prime and what we've purchased and maybe things that we've looked at on the internet, and and that tailored hyper personalized experience is we want to try to implement that in the education space. So let's go to the next slide.
David, let me
Go ahead.
I'll just jump in here really quick, because I think it's like the why to it, and we hit it on these outcomes. But let me give a quick example of this for y'all, right? The end goal, and I think where we're all going, is like, how can we use agents to in our day-to-day as a digital assistant, not as, to take over someone's role, but think of it as one of your students. So let's just say, it's 12 a.m. It's Tuesday. The student, she's panicking, biology final. She goes into the school app and she's like, I'm going to fail. I need help. And so Agentforce can hear that. And because it has this trusted context, it's going through a few of these tools that we just talked about, right? It's asking Data 360, who is this, right? It's going through the roles so it knows who that person is. It's looking through all the Informatica data. Is she actually failing, right? Those kind of batch systems that you have, right? And giving that access into the agent. Yes, her grades are low. It decides to act. It says, okay, don't worry, Sarah, we'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. I booked a tutoring slot for you. Well, that's actually MuleSoft, because now MuleSoft connected the APIs from your agent into your advising. And so now you didn't have to tell Sarah in a chat, like, oh, hey, our advising location is X, show up, here's our hours. That's not really a differentiated experience. And so think about all the things that you can do by having the data in order. And that's the end game that I think we need to think about and have set. And like, that's the why on the trusted context, and why we need to spend a little bit more time than we have been traditionally on this data up front. So
yeah,
thanks.
and even Anthony, imagine like taking it even further, that hey, we booked that for 10 o'clock tomorrow in the student center, and then the tutor gets a Slack message with a dossier on this person saying that, okay, here's what's going on, and it's pulling all that in, and it's creating this report. So just in time, that advisor could, and that tutor could say that, okay, here's where I got to really lean in. This is where she's struggling, and here's how you could be most effective with your limited time with her.
Oh yeah, imagine the swivel chairing that goes on with an advisor to pull all the academic records, all those reports. Like, how much time does that take? Who's creating that? Like, having the data correct allows you to automate that, right? Those are the cool things where you can still really start running ahead.
Yeah.
Thanks, David.
So if you were going to get a tattoo as a result of this webinar, it's unlock, trust, and activate. That's our mantra for this, if you haven't figured it out so far. But let me double click on it. Let's go to the next slide, Anthony.
Yeah.
And, so it's like, okay, what does that mean? And this is one of my favorite slides of the whole deck, because it sort of does double click on, okay, what does it mean to unlock your data? And it's like, this is a really nice checklist for you to go through of like, are my systems connected? Are they integrated? Do I get the semantic understanding of my data, right? And then from a trust standpoint, how am I validating my data? What is the quality of the data? Where am I getting the data from, right? I got 2 different email addresses. Which is the right one? And is it because I trust this system more, or this system was updated the last and I want to use the last, and being able to identify that? Protecting your data, making sure the right people have access to it, especially as we start adding AI agents. Again, you just don't want to throw your agent into the AI pool and let it have access to everything. That could be catastrophically bad. Unifying your data. And then we go to activating. And, a lot of times people think activation, oh, that's AI agents and everything. A lot of times it's as simple as Tableau. And I say simple in air quotes, where I'm creating dashboards to activate a person, right? So now I have a Tableau dashboard of students are at risk that I need to have a call plan for. But I could go even further from an agentic AI standpoint and automate those the activations of those students to do those interventions. So let's keep on going. So here's, we're starting to wrap up on the slides a little bit, but, here's sort of where, from a product standpoint of where the components come together. And I found this really helpful. And, again, it's like when I sit down with a customer, you could start with all the systems you have and figure out what kind of problems and agentic experiences you want to have. But what I really recommend is let's start on the left of this slide of what experiences do you want to have? Agentic experiences or just like human experiences that you want to have? Whether it's, and think about it across a continuum of recruiting a student to having them be a student and making sure that they're successful, helping them with their career, whether they're still a student or they're an alumni, and you could do career counseling, and then the alumni experience. So you could complete that full cycle of from a college recruit to a donor at the end where you're doing advancement. And you could have these agentic experiences. We mentioned Agentforce. That's our Salesforce's way of providing a turnkey solution for you to develop your own agents. And so instead of you building agents where you're grabbing the components, the logging, the LLM from all these different pieces, and then you got to glue something together, we're providing you with a highly opinionated way to develop agents securely and quickly. But we also realize that not everybody in the world is using Agentforce, whether they've chosen additional tools or they're working with third-party SaaS tools that provide their own agents. That's where we have MuleSoft Agent Fabric. MuleSoft Agent Fabric, the same way that we use MuleSoft to connect systems together, we use MuleSoft Agent Fabric to connect agents together and to connect agents to data sources through MCP. And so once we have the agentic experiences figured out, then we could start looking at our data. And that could be the unified data through Data 360. And that is often hydrated through a data lake. And that data lake, whether it's Snowflake, Databricks, S3, whatever you like, right? That data lake is hydrated through Informatica, and where you're doing ETL and ELT, where you're pulling data out of the data sources down at the bottom. You're in a regular batch sort of situation. You're doing ETL, ELT, you're doing the data governance, you're building a data catalog for your data scientists, put it in your data lake, and then you could do your analytics. Your analytics could, your Tableau could look at your data lake. Your Tableau could look at the data products inside of Informatica. And then lastly, the MuleSoft part, that's for your live interactive integrations where, I want to know what the seating chart looks like, whether it's a sporting event or a classroom, what's available and can I fit more students in this class, or is the class completely full, right? And that's where MuleSoft could look at these live data sources, be able to pump that into a data lake, pump it into Data 360, give it directly to an agent or to a human to be able to integrate all these systems together. And so, and then the back-end systems down at the bottom, those are all the hundreds of systems that you have in your institution that you want to be able to unlock. And so the unlock part, that's MuleSoft and Informatica. The trust is the Informatica part to clean your data up. And then your activation, that's MuleSoft, that's Data 360, that's your Agentforce and MuleSoft Agent Fabric and Tableau. So let's go to the next slide. So I'm wrapping up here, but for me, like a call to action standpoint, if you haven't heard yet, unlock, trust, and activate. That's our mantra for this session. Making sure that you have your data unlocked instead of these archipelagos of data sources that are scattered all over the place. Unlock them. Make sure that the data that you unlock is trustworthy, and then be able to activate them, because just having the data unlocked and trustworthy does you no good if it's sitting there. How do I bring that data to life? How do I automate things? How do I activate things? And then the fourth thing that I haven't mentioned is the partner part. And that's where, talk to the pros. I always say the second mouse always gets the cheese. This is new for a lot of us, but there are folks that do this for a living, like Salesforce and Servio, that we've done this over and over and over again. We know it works. And so for people that are on this journey for their first time, working with the pros that know how to build a culture of sharing and reuse of your data sets and your APIs, so that you're not just solving a point problem, you're thinking about projects 2 through N as well, and even things that you haven't, solving problems that you haven't even thought of yet, and creating these assets so they're like pre-built Lego bricks that all of a sudden something new comes out, you could reach into that bag of Lego bricks and pull out a Lego brick that is exactly what you need, and to be able to compose a new application from that. So that's what I got, and let's turn it over to the next slide, which I think is Q&A.
Yeah, I love it. Questions in the chat, or feel free to jump in and listen. This is a lot. I mean, we're playing more at the 30,000 foot level, and I think, absolutely we'd love to dive into each of these individually with you all. But questions from any of the content that we've talked about today from the team?
And while people are thinking of questions, I'd love to hear from like Nancy, Jake, and the Servio team of like, does it like do you guys agree with what we've been talking about? Or are you seeing similar patterns? And what does success look like for your customers?
Yeah, David or Jake, do you want to go ahead? I saw you come off mute there too.
Yeah, I can say a couple things, and Jake, I can hand it back to you. Yeah, I think all of this from our perspective, and as we work with our customers, it kind of paints a different picture of data and what data means, right? Historically, integration has been, point A to point B. I need this data over there, right? And I think the future of the data landscape as we approach, this or approach we're in this AI age now, is data really is the tool that kind of feeds all of these things. And so as we look at, how do we view the data? How do we handle the data? What do we do with it overall? We need to prepare data to be used in ways that we don't know yet, right? We were just having a meeting this morning, and the conversation was, do a point-to-point integration if you know exactly what you're going to want to do with this data in 5 years. Set up more of a data platform if you're not sure, which if any of you out there are completely sure what you're going to do with your data in 5 years, I applaud you. I don't think any of us do for sure, right? And that's really where these tools come in is the ability to kind of, in essence, predict the future, right? And be prepared for when that next best functionality comes out. We're ready for it with the data. Jake, anything to add there from your perspective?
Yeah, so what my background isn't as technical. I really come, in my previous life, I was on campus, right? And I was recruiting students, I was supporting students. We had students in campus housing. We had alums that would bring their kids to campus visits, right? And these were all the data points that we knew that there were all these connections between them. And we wanted to be able to dive deeper into each of those connections so that if we've got someone that's coming to campus that, donated $1 million last year, we knew the advancement team could come over and shake a hand when they were bringing their child or a grandchild for a campus visit. I think what is really exciting about this is, when I would go and talk to the folks on the technical side about what we wanted to do and what that vision is around that 360-degree student view, these tools are so exciting in terms of being able to create those connections and do it faster than we've ever been able to do before. And I think that's where when we think about agent force and even just, simple summary agents, things like that are so valuable. And I think that as we're having these conversations, I think about my previous life and how much value these tools really add to our teams across campus, but also to our students, to our parents, to our alums, our other stakeholders within the ecosystem. And kind of to the point earlier around as we're thinking about this, um, how do we start from a place where we can build that foundation and really grow and scale it so that we have a better idea of what that 5 years looks like? So I agree with Jake. If anyone's figured that out, I want to be on that webinar. Let us know when you're going to be hosting that. We'll be there. But I think this is that springboard to this next level when it comes to AI and automation. And we know that data is going to be front and center with all of that. And so not just from a technical standpoint, but I'm really excited about what we're hearing and what we're seeing a lot of our clients and partners do in terms of building those outcomes, David, that you mentioned earlier.
Love it.
Mike, I saw you come off. Did you have a question or something you wanted to throw out there as well? Nailed it. Any other questions from folks? Any use cases that you all are discussing on any of your campuses that you want to throw out and talk through?
I'd also be interested in feedback too of are we right? Are we wrong? What are we missing? And also what are some of the big trends that you're seeing that we should be looking at as well?
Thanks, Jonathan. And listen, it's completely okay with no questions. I think that might kind of lead into where next, which could be a more appropriate forum. And so I'll just kind of go to that. A call to action. We want to spend time with you. We want to and make sure we're investing with each of you. Servio is one of our most trusted partners in higher education. I lead our data foundations team here for higher education. We have the right resources to bring in. So I think the appropriate next step is that we'd love to kind of dive in deeper and have an initial 1 hour joint data strategy session. We'll send over some pre-work to understand your data, but we'll talk about where is the data living? What are we trying to access? Like, what are the current gaps? What are your data goals? And from there, I think we can see what are the priorities to focus on? Like, where are we in the journey around unlocking and trusting and activating your data that our team can help and lean in? And and ultimately, each of those conversations are going to look different for each of you. And so we certainly have a commitment from our team on supporting, and I know from Nancy and the Servio team as well. Jake, anything to add on that for the users here as they think about that?
I think that's what we're excited about. I know that talking in front of a group of people about your data strategy may not be the best form, right? But yeah, we'd love to sit down. And this is, I think, where we're having a lot of fun at work right now is having these kind of strategic conversations and helping folks kind of map that path out. And so part of the follow-up from today, we'll share this recording over so everyone can review and share with other colleagues on campus. Yeah, we'd love to find a time to sit down and chat and start having deeper conversations on a more individual specific level. So Nancy, I saw you come off there. Is there anything you want to add?
No, I was just going to elaborate on this session, right? You all know your data better than anyone. But what you don't know is, if I want to do this, right? How do I get my data? What kind of data do I need? Is it a full integration? Is it, maybe just data cloud and being able to report on it? So those are the types of questions that we can help you with during this 1 hour strategy session.
Yeah. One fit is not gonna, or one solution is not gonna be a fit for all of your needs, and that's why we need to look at this holistically. I'm traveling around the country, meeting with customers. I'll be in Dallas next week, Salt Lake the week after. I see we have some people from Omaha. I have one of my team is down there today with Creighton. Reach out to me, send a connection on LinkedIn. I'd love to meet with you each individually as I'm traveling. So, and if you have a desire to kind of take this deeper dive and just meet with our team, feel free to reach out to your core, Salesforce account executive, and they can loop us in. Otherwise, go directly to Servio, who you all have a great relationship with. That's what we had today. Again, didn't want to go deep into the products and really just talk about what we're hearing from other customers and what we're trying to do at Salesforce to make your jobs easier.
Awesome. Well,
A big
thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone for being here. And Anthony and David, really thank you so much for bringing this perspective and these insights. This is really valuable. So really appreciate your time. And yeah, we're really looking forward to connecting with folks and getting in on some of these strategy sessions. So we'll be following up. Thank you so much for everyone for being here today and have a lovely Thursday.